Hi, I'm Tyler, mechanical engineer at FlashCut CNC. Today I'm going to show you how simple it is to get a full 3-axis CNC setup going on your X3 size mill. We're going to use the Grizzly G0704 mill today, although our kit is compatible with the MSC, Jet, Harbor Freight, and many other brand mills. All of our controls are run off our FlashCut CNC software. The FlashCut software runs on any PC with Windows XP, Vista, 7, or 8. The design of our control system ensures smooth, uninterrupted motion by taking the control away from your PC and running it strictly from the control box. We also have many accessories available for the kit, including a pendant, a relay box, and our limit switch kit, which allows for easy homing. Please feel free to contact us to let us know if you're interested in any of these products. Although our kit is compatible with many different combinations of our controllers and motors, for today's purposes, we're going to use our NEMA 2303 motors with our Pro Series micro-stepping controller. Now that we've discussed the various controls that can operate your system, let's take a look at the actual hardware and parts that you're going to get with your kit. The first thing I'd like to discuss is our unibody aluminum bracket. This is an all-in-one system that allows for simple, easy mounting, as well as very strong structural integrity. This kit is designed actually to mount with our NEMA size 23 motors, but is adaptable for NEMA 34s as well. Your kit comes with 3 belts, 2 of which are 130 XL, 1 is 150 XL. We have 3 10 XL pulleys, 2 20 XL, and 1 40 XL pulley. You have different motor mounting hardware, as well as your plastic end caps and cover plates. Now that we've addressed the different parts, let's go ahead and do some pre-assembly and get the system ready to go. So now let's go ahead and get started on our pre-assembly. First thing we want to do is we want to mount our 10 XL pulleys onto the motor shafts. So we recommend that you mount the top surface of the pulley about 1 inch off the circular boss on the motor. So right now we're going to go ahead and throw that on. The other thing we want to be sure to do is find one of our set screws and make sure that's screwed in directly on the flat of the motor shaft. We're going to use a 5/64 hex wrench to go ahead and tighten down that set screw. And we're going to do this for all 3 motors and pulleys. One thing that's worth noticing too is that the hub of the pulley is down towards the motor. Again, I just want to find the flat on the motor. Okay, so now we have all 3 pulleys on our 3 different NEMA 23 motors. Now we're going to mount the motor to our aluminum unibody bracket. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to our motor cables so that when we're operating the machine, that everything stays safe and out of the way and we don't have any accidents. So for our X and Y, we're going to mount the X and Y in the same orientation. Our Z is going to be opposite. To fasten the motors to the brackets, we're going to use our 1032 button head screws. We're also going to use a 1032 serrated lock nut. So I'm going to go ahead and drop all 4 of the screws in. Once we drop in all the screws, we're going to go ahead and fasten them down using our 1032 serrated lock nut and an 1/8 inch hex wrench. At this point, we just want to get the motor on fairly snug so it doesn't slide around freely, but yet we don't need to tighten it down all the way as we're going to have to move it to tension the belt. So now we have all 3 axes prepared and ready to go. Again, with our X and Y motor cables in the same direction, the Z in the opposite. Let's go ahead and prepare our machine and begin installation. So now let's go ahead and prepare our machine for the installation process. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the hand wheels. And there's a little cap here covering our Z-axis screw. And we're going to open all that up so that we can mount to the machine. So let's first just go ahead and take these end bolts off. There's a little lock washer here as well. And then we just want to slide the hand wheel off. Okay, so now once we have the hand wheel removed, we're going to use a 5mm wrench to remove the bearing block bolts, leaving the bearings and the bearing block in place. Let's do the same thing on the X. Okay, and again, just like the Y, once our hand wheel is removed, we're going to go ahead and use our 5mm wrench to back out the bearing block bolts as well. Now let's move on to the Z, and we'll get that prepped and ready to go. Okay, so for the X, we just need to remove this plastic black cap here using a 4mm wrench and back out all 4 of the socket head cap screws there. Okay, so then as you'll see on the Z-axis lead screw, we've got these 2 lock nuts here holding the screw into the bearing block. We're going to go ahead and remove the top one, and our system will actually function as the lock nut on that later, as you'll see. All right, our machine's all prepped and ready to go. Let's begin by installing our bracket onto the Y-axis. To do so, we want to find our M6 by 55 button head screws with the M6 washer, our 1¼ spacers, and one of our motor bracket assemblies that has our motor with the cable down. Additionally, we have a Y-axis shaft spacer that is broached out with a 4mm keyway. So we want to go ahead and install that first. Now that the machine is all prepped and ready for installation, let's go ahead and start with the Y-axis. Begin by adding your shaft spacer with a 4mm broach that's going to go over the 4mm key. And then let's add our 20XL pulley, which also goes over the key. We're going to use a 5/64 hex wrench to tighten down the set screw. And now let's go ahead and mount our motor bracket. As you can see, there's many different holes on the back of this motor bracket. So we're going to take a look at our user's manual, figure out exactly which holes correspond with this bearing block, and go ahead and install it. We're going to use a M6 by 55 button head screw with an M6 washer on it. Drop that into the corresponding slot. We're going to add our 1¼ spacer, and using a 4mm hex wrench, we're going to go ahead and install it. When you're installing the bracket, it's not vital, but yet it's nice to keep the bracket as parallel with the table as possible. Go ahead and tighten those down. Now let's go ahead and thread our belt through the pulleys, and then we'll add tension to the belt. At this point, very often people over-tighten the motor, so we have to loosen that back up. You want to slide the motor to the innermost position in the slots, and then go ahead and thread our 130XL belt over the pulley. Now that we can tell that the belt is on both pulleys, we want to go ahead and pull the motor away from the lead screw, adding enough tension onto the belt, and then we want to go ahead and tighten down the motor mount screws. Next, let's go ahead and put our plastic end caps on. And finally, let's put our cover plate on. Now, when you're installing these cover plates, there's 2 things to be aware of. There's a countersink on one face of the cover plate, which is the front face. Also, these holes are a little bit offset, so you want the larger dimension going towards the motor so that it covers the entire opening. And now our Y-axis is complete. Let's move on to the X-axis. The procedure for the X-axis is very similar to the Y-axis, although we don't have a spacer on this lead screw. We're going to go ahead and start with the hub of the pulley in towards the machine. Use our 5/64 hex wrench to tighten the set screw down. And now let's go ahead and mount the motor. Again, you can reference the user manual to figure out which holes you need to use. And then we're going to get our M6 by 40 button head screw with the M6 washer. Our 2 9/16 spacers. And we're going to use a 4mm wrench. Make sure these bolts are nice and tight. Now again, if you have to use an 1/8" wrench to slide the motor to the furthest inside position, do so. and get our second 130 XL belt. We're going to go ahead and thread that around the flange pulley and over the 20 XL. Again, we're going to push the motor away from the lead screw to add tension to the belt. And then we want to go ahead and tighten down the motor mount screws. Now that our belt's nice and taut, we can see that the belt is on both pulleys, nice and centered. Let's go ahead and add our plastic end caps. And now adding the cover plate, the procedure is going to be the same. Check and make sure that the longer side is in towards the motor. And now in just a few minutes, we have both our X and Y ready to go. Let's simply add our Z, and we've got 3 axes of CNC control. So now that we have both the X and Y axes all set up, we're going to begin our Z axis. The procedure for this is slightly different in that we're going to mount our bracket first, and then we're going to add our pulley. So the first thing we want to do is we want to grab our M5 by 16 button head screws with the M5 washers and drop them into their slot on the bracket. Next, we're going to gather our 4 3/16" spacers, and we're going to lay them over the mounting holes. It's important to note here that if you purchase a limit switch kit, now is the time to install your Z-axis limit switch onto the motor bracket. For further instruction on how to do that, please refer to our other video on the mini mill limit switch kit. Now let's go ahead and install the bracket. Okay, so now let's go ahead and install our 40 XL pulley. We want to mount this with the hub down towards the machine, and we're going to thread it on to the M16 thread. You may have to either lock the head of your machine or hold on to the hand wheel while threading this on, because you want to thread it all the way down. Once the pulley's all the way onto the lead screw, the hub of the pulley should actually go just below the surface of the bracket. Once you have that all the way down, go ahead and using an 8mm hex wrench, we want to tighten down the M16 set screw. Again, holding your hand wheel or locking the head to make sure that's nice and tight. Now let's adjust our motor. Make sure that that's in the innermost position in the slots. We want to thread our 150 XL belt around the flanged pulley and over the 40-tooth pulley. Let's go ahead and add pressure on the motor away from the lead screw, adding tension to the belt, and fasten down the button head screws. Again, we're using an 1/8" hex wrench. Now that our pulley and belt are installed, let's go ahead and put on our plastic end caps and our cover plate. And now our Z-axis is complete. So let's go ahead and hook up the motors to the controller, and we'll go ahead and show you how it works. So again, for this demonstration, we're using our Pro Series micro stepping controller. So we simply have one motor cable for each axis of the machine. We offer a Pro Series servo as well, which then you would have 2 motor cables with your power and your encoder feedback that would plug in very similarly to the back of the machine. You would just have additional connections. We also have our power port, USB, and a relay port, as well as input and output slots as well, depending on which accessories you purchase. So let's begin by setting up our stepper controller by using axis 1 as our X axis. We're going to use axis 2 as our Y, and axis 3 is our Z. So let's go ahead and do that now. Now it's also important to note that when you're plugging or unplugging your motors in, we have the controller powered off and there's nothing plugged into the power switch. All right, X and Y are all plugged in. Now that our motors are all plugged in, let's go ahead and plug our high-speed USB cable in to our Windows-operated PC and to the controller. And finally, let's go ahead and plug the power into the controller. Now that the controller is all wired up, let's go ahead and flip it around. We'll power it on and we'll connect with the software. Okay, so we have the FlashCut software open on our computer. Let's go ahead and power on the controller. And as you can see by the LEDs at the bottom of the controller, they're lit up, the system's powered on, and there's a USB communication between the controller and the PC. So let's go ahead and select controller, connect, follow and pay attention to all safety instructions. I'm going to reset the coordinates, and we're connected. All right, now that the controller is powered on, I also wanted to show one other feature. We do have a control pendant available for purchase, so we're going to demonstrate that as well. You simply plug that in to a USB port on your computer, go to Configuration, Preferences, Pendant, select Use Flex Pendant, and connect. You can see that we have a green light shown on the pendant, so it's ready for use. Now we have the controller powered on, everything's wired up, we're connected to the software. Let's go ahead and jog our motors and see how it works. So the X is working good. The Y is working good. And our Z works fine. So now that we have full three-axis CNC control, I want to demonstrate one more feature again with this pendant and show the jogging feature here. As you can see, our mini mill retrofit kit is very simple and easy to install. We've set it up again with our Pro Series stepper controller. Our Compact Series controller can get you feed rates of about 40 inches per minute on the X and Y, with around 8 to 10 inches per minute on our Z. We showed you our Pro Series stepper with 60 inches per minute on our X and Y and about 40 on our Z. And our Pro Series servo controller can go even faster. For more information on these or any of our products here at FlashCut CNC, feel free to call us at 888-88-FLASH or visit us on the web at flashcutcnc.com. Thanks for watching.